Right. Okay. Welcome to another Whiskey Circus, take 2. Pleased to announce that we've got Iain and Gary, who's going to take us through a full Glen Scotia tasting of their core range. So I'll hand over to you, Iain, if you could give us an intro to Glen Scotia and tell us a little bit about what we might be drinking.
Yeah, well, I'm actually not sure what you're drinking, to be quite honest with you, but yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the distillery. Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Iain McAlister. I'm the distillery manager at Glen Scotia. I've been there for 13 years now, over 13 years now. And yeah, in that period, it's obviously seen a remarkable transformation through to the hard work of people like Gary, who's with you today, and you know, the greater team. So it's you know, obviously the core range, undoubtedly you'll have, you know, from the double cask, the 15 Victoriana, 18, 25-year-old, right up to the festival bottlings, and even the seasonal releases. You know, there's a few very interesting drums in there. Obviously Glen Scotia itself in Campbelltown, the former Victorian whisky capital of the world. Now the whiskiest place in the world, which you know, a title that justly deserves. There's nowhere quite like it for, you know, for whisky production. So yeah, it's a wonderful wee place, you know, and unfortunately over the last wee while we've not got a chance to. It's all been virtual. We've never really had the chance to meet up with everybody who usually comes here for the festivals and tours and etc. So yeah, as I say, have a wonderful tasting and enjoy, guys.
Yeah, unfortunately this year's festival, I take it, is already cancelled. So are you already looking forward to doing one next year, or are you still going to wait and see what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we should hopefully we said that last year, and obviously this year was you know, followed suit as last year. But you know, fingers crossed we'll be in a better position next year. I think obviously we're in a better place than probably where we were this time last year for sure. So terrible time for many. It's been awful. But you know, I think obviously we can build on what we've done and hopefully incorporate that into something interesting next year. So
I think one thing we say, we know for sure that we've all done plenty of virtual tastings and stuff over the last kind of year or so, and I think the virtual element is going to be here to stay at the festival, because the wonderful thing about that is that it gives us that broader reach. I mean, last year we had over 10,000 people visit the virtual festival from all over the world: Brazil, Australia, various bits of America, South America. It was brilliant. It was brilliant to see. So I think we'll certainly be working on the basis that the virtual festival will definitely happen, and we'll plan for a physical festival song, and it's just going to be working with the situation and seeing where we land nearer the time.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll probably look at, you know, with a lot of things next year and going forward, that we incorporate both sides with the virtual and the physical, and I think that will work quite well.
Hybrid festival, I think, is what they're all referring to these days. Yeah,
no, I think, you know, I do see that kind of thing working pretty well in the future.
Yeah, I think especially when you've got somewhere like Campbelltown, that it is, I mean, yeah, there's a 20-minute flight, but that only seats about 12 people, and other than that, you've got a 3.5-hour drive from Glasgow, so you need to get to Glasgow to then have that 3.5 hours. So no, it's not the easiest place in the world to get to, so being able to open it up virtually does really kind of open the doors and open that experience out to many more folk.
Yeah, and so during this lockdown, sort of this third one as we've just gone through, are you still in full production then, Iain, or have you scaled it back a bit?
No, we resumed full production the end of July last year. So it was you know, back to normality, and even within that time period, the shop opened, but it's obviously since closed again, and the shop's more or less closed at the moment. But apart from that, yeah, we're back to full production. You know, so it's it's interesting, as I say, you know, because obviously the distillery's quiet. You've not got the same level of tours and tastings and such like, which was obviously, you know, was a major part of the working day. So actually, when you take in the look at the working week, you think, how did we ever manage to do so many tours and tastings? You know, because obviously it's zero now, and it's you know, before that it was really quite, you know, it was quite busy. So, but no, as I say, production as it was, you know, pre-COVID levels. So we're on target again for well over 500,000 litres, which, you know, is you know, it's a lot for Campbelltown. Consider the whole region as a, you know, the 3 distilleries. It's not even 1 million litres, so it gives you an idea, you know, how small and interesting and important the region is. So yeah.
So obviously, bearing in mind that we might not have you right at the end of the tasting, so we're obviously doing the double cask 15, 18, Victoriana, and 25. Which one would be your pick out of them for, you know, for your normal type drinking? Is there any favourites, or?
Do you know, it's a hard question. It really is a hard question. I mean, there's elements of them all that I really like. You know, obviously the double cask. It's getting to the stage actually, even when the older ones now are, you know, something that we've made obviously with the festival editions, and you know, when you're getting to 10 to 12-year-old, you know, it's something that myself and the boys have done. But the double cask was always something that was important to us, plainly because, you know, the fact that obviously whiskey been such a drawn out affair that sometimes, you know, you never got to appreciate your wares fully, and something of the double casks ilk, you know, is really important to us. So it's always been quite symbolic for me, and I think for the guys as well. So, but yeah, there's elements in there. You obviously, the 15-year-old is really close to that distillery character. 18-year-old slightly more floral. The 25-year-old, wonderful dram. You know, yeah, I could drink that day in, day out if I was fabulously wealthy. So,
yeah.
But yeah, there's elements in there that they're really, you know, really obviously, you know, it means a lot to us. Again, the Victoriana for what it is, you know, it's very symbolic, that obviously that Victorian whiskey capital of the world, the casks, you know, the type of whiskey, the robustness, but yeah, it's quite complex. So yeah, I'm quite sure there's something to fit everybody there, and you know, as you work through them, as I say.
Yeah. And since we're talking of double cask, I'm going to hand over to Gary now, because if I don't let everybody start drinking soon, there will be a mutiny. There are thirsty bunch this lot. So thanks very much for that, Iain. We're going to hand over to Gary now to actually talk us through the double cask. So please feel free to butt in if you want, Iain. But over to you, Gary.
Cheers, Soren. Thank you very much, Iain. Good to see you. Hope to get back down to Campbelltown. See you soon.
Absolutely, Gary. Absolutely.
But no, listen. I want to say thanks, Soren, for kind of helping organise this. I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. It's took a wee while for us to get it over the line, Soren, but we are here eventually, sir.
Yeah.
And I think what I'll do is everybody get double cask pulled? I mean, I know that's a stupid question.
I think half of them have drunk the bottle by now.
So I reckon we just get stuck into it, and then we'll come back to a bit of chat.
Yeah.
So
I'll say bye-bye. Okay.
Thanks, Iain.
Thanks, Iain.
See you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
See you later. Bye-bye.
So double cask is our wonderful entry-level single malt, 46%. Non-chill filtered, and in terms of the double cask being originally matured in first fill bourbon, before then being put into first fill Pedro Jimenez sherry for about 6 to 9 months. We obviously kind of vary that batch by batch, but it's kind of never any kind of longer than 9 months. Non-chill filtered, 46%. It's an absolutely cracking wee dram. One of my very first whiskies that really kind of bit the bug, really, and kind of set me on the journey. And it's just one that I've always come back to, that's for sure.
I mean, one thing that always gets me with a lot of whiskies like this, Gary, is mostly Oloroso, and it's nice to have somebody actually do it with PX rather than Oloroso then.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we'll always do. It's, I mean, you're right, a lot of double cask and sherry finishes are Oloroso, but I think both bring really nice different elements to it. And I think for this, for a young spirit, obviously no age statement, but it is, double cask is quite young. It's normally between about 5 or 6. The PX just works really, really well with it, and being a first fill. Ultimately, what I feel it does, it kind of just rounds off all the corners, smooths everything, brings everything together, and it just makes it an almost dangerously drinkable whiskey. So I mean, certainly kind of on the nose, you're obviously getting that sherry initially. You get that wonderful dry sweet sherry note. I get a bit of the bourbon. That vanilla comes through as well. Yeah, I mean 46%. There's no big alcohol burn or anything there. It's just wonderfully balanced.
What's everybody getting on the nose? Anybody getting, anybody want to come forward and say anything yet? Or we're going to have to pick on you today?
I think it's got sort of a nice sort of sweet biscuity kind of note to it. That sort of like maltiness. I think the sweetness of the sherry kind of and that kind of like mixture with the bourbon comes across to me as sort of like being a bit biscuity, which is quite nice. And maybe some like sort of crystallized ginger.
It's certainly. I mean, I drink it too quickly, so I don't spend as much time nosing this one. But I think it's the sherry does subdue quite a lot of the notes that we'll get through the other ones. And I think one of the things you'll find, as Iain said, that there are a lot of differences going through the range that I think offer up different things for different people. But there are some of those key Campbelltown similarities that we'll touch on as we go through. But I think, I've probably done enough talking. Shall we do a bit of drinking?
Yeah.
Slàinte mhath, folks. Good health.
Slàinte.
Cheers. Just going back to the nose for a second. I don't know if anyone else gets this. I might be going mad, but I got it on my very first bottle of it as well. Butterscotch Angel Delight. For me, there's like quite an intense butterscotch note in there with a bit of salinity and a bit of Dunwich funk to it as well.
See, I was thinking Werther's Original, but I can't comment on the Angel Delight because I've never had it. So.
Oh, mate, I'd say you're missing out, but you're probably not, to be fair.
I was thinking Angel Delight too, Andy. Don't the butterscotch.
Was there ever
sweetness?
Was there ever a clearer example of the age gap between Angel Delight and Werther's Originals? That's kind of. But I think that's ultimately it. Is there is that wonderful sweet toffee vanilla from the bourbon, but balanced with the kind of different sweetness that comes from the sherry. And I think that's what gives it that wonderful smoothness as well.
I think it's a perfect balance because generally PX can be a little bit sweet, and I think it's just right because it doesn't make it too sweet. It just nicely balances each other out.
Yeah, no, and I think we're at Glen Scotia. We're in a very, very lucky position in that we've got Iain doing all the distillation down in Campbelltown, but then we've also got Michael Henry doing the master blender bit. Based as much as he's based in Alexandria, he's responsible for the blending of the casks and the cask finishing and kind of monitoring those cask finishes. And I genuinely believe that if he was born 200 years ago, he'd been burnt at the stake. Like in terms of. It's a black art to me that I just don't understand. But it's all about finding those really fine balances and knowing when these things kind of come out of the casks to make sure the finish works with the spirit ultimately and doesn't overpower it. And again, I think it's one of the things that will come up going through is the balance of flavours across the range. It is just magnificent for me. No one thing dominates or overpowers. You tend to get them kind of coming through in the waves.
I think one thing that needs to be said about it though, Gary, is It's one that a lot of people, when we're talking about Glen Scotia, we don't talk about this whiskey, but at £32 a bottle, it's a bloody steal, I think.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree, Soren, and I think it's a lot of people, because it's no age statement. It's not really not that it's not discussed. I think it's just we probably all just drink it as that. It's just what you drink. You don't spend too much time thinking about it. I mean, I will often refer to double cask as basically whiskey flavoured iron brew for me, because it's just something I can pick up and drink. It sounds terrible, like any time of any day. Where I think there are different, and it's how I probably look at the Glen Scotia range, is that there's more. It's more in terms of the occasion of times that I'll drink it, and when it works rather than what I'm in the mood for.
Gary, do you have a rough idea of the ages of the casks that you're using?
Yeah, so the liquid in this one's probably, it's normally between about 5 and 6. And again, it's that wonderful bit about the no age statement, as it allows us to kind of tweak
including the finish, Gary.
Finishes in there for about 6 to 9 months, Christoph.
Yeah, but after the 5-6 years in bourbon cask, or 5-6 years total?
No, so it's probably 5 or 6 years, and then the 6 to 9 months in the sherry.
Okay.
And that's, again, it's probably why we're quite vague about it, because it can be just the 5 years and then 6 months, or it could be 5.5 years and the 9 months in the sherry. So it's not, doesn't really do us any favours by kind of sticking an age on it. And I think, as Son said, in terms of value for money, yeah, wonderful.
I guess you might have kind of younger casks that have been a little bit more active, so you've kind of got what you want out of them in a little bit of a shorter time frame than maybe some of the others.
No, exactly, and it's that, again, it's that wonderful bit of having a no age statement to be able to do some of that with some of these casks. But it means we can use, if we want to use some older or some of that younger stuff. Yeah, it's all about monitoring those casks as they're maturing, and that's, like I said, that's part of that black magic of Mr. Henry and Co.
I mean, what I find with this one is it's one of those that I've always got a bottle in the house generally, but I don't always go to it. And then when you go back to it, you think, damn, this is good. And then you just drink it and then it's gone. And then you kind of leave it again. And you don't appreciate how good it is until you go back to it.
And I think that's kind of what I was kind of referring to, in that it's not really talked about. Like, I think so many of us will have a bottle or bottles like this that are just always in the cupboard. Like you said, it's not something that it's front of your mind, but you just find yourself going and pouring it, and you've drank it before you know it.
Yeah, no, I do think it's a good one. I mean, anybody not liking it, you can be honest as well. Gary's.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about you when you're going, but you can tell me. Sorry.
No, it looks like it's one that's pretty unanimous then, Gary. Super.
I think one of the things I find on the palate, I think I'm agreeing with a lot of the kind of stuff that I'm seeing coming through in the chat. Like some kind of toffee apples from Adrian's a good shout. But I get more of the salinity eventually comes through for me on the palate. It's probably more on the finish than it is on the palate. So I think when I think of the Campbelltown style, and what we're always shooting for is that kind of core median line that we're always shooting for, is that wonderful salinity, a bit of oiliness coming through, a really nice fruity element, kind of similar to Loch Lomond, because we're doing similarly long fermentation, and then just that wonderful balance of flavours that kind of comes through as well.
Yeah, I think Andy's put a pretty good description: toffee, banana bread, spice, and salinity. I think that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? You've got all. It's like a big bowl full of flavours just chucked together, and they all kind of come at you at once, I find. What was?
No, I think that's. I think that's what I'm saying. It's that wonderful balance of flavours.
I think I get them quite progressively though. For me, it starts off with the spiciness and the dried fruit, and then there was a bit in the middle I couldn't place, but I think for me it's kiwi fruit, including crunchy seeds, and then it turns into the salty, smoky ashiness for the finish. So I do get like 3 distinct phases.
I mean, for Paul, it's reminding him of a Chinese takeaway. So I'm intrigued to know what he has for a Chinese takeaway.
Yeah.
He's not going to answer by the look of it, neither.
No, just throwing one in there.
It's because he normally drinks half a bottle, so he has to get a Chinese takeaway after.
Yeah, I was thinking it's probably the Chinese takeaway once he's drunk the half a bottle because he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. But yeah, I agree with that as well, Vim. Nice and dry, and it's kind of, although we know it's PX, like you say, it's not necessarily as sweet or as typical of a PX. I mean, the dryness, we obviously normally go with the Oloroso, but there is a dryness to this, isn't there?
No, definitely. And I think it's one of the things you'll find with the finishes is it's all about that working in combination with the spirit. And it's probably if I reference the 11-year-old sherry double cask finish that we did the last seasonal release, I think with it being double sherry, a lot of folk came into it expecting it to be this big, massive sherry bomb. But what we really more did with that was bring the sherry influences from both of them. So those different raisins and that wonderful sweet drying finish. And bringing those two together to then tie in with the wonderful maritime Glen Scotia spirit. So it's more about the influences of these casks rather than, like I said, that kind of big overpowering finish. For sure.
Brilliant.
So do you want to shift on to the 15? This, for me, this wonderful beauty.
Hang on a minute, Gary, let me just put you on. Right, there we go.
There we go. There's our 15. This one for me absolutely embodies Campbelltown. This is Campbelltown in a glass for me, and it's got all of those elements that I talked about are there in spades. So for this one, it's a first fill. It's a mixture of first fill and refill American oak. That's pretty much in those barrels for the 15 years. Married together, and then it's got a real short, sharp Oloroso finish for, you're talking like 6 weeks. Really just to give it a wee bit of that sherry, a tiny bit of that sherry note, and help bring it all together as well. Again, bottled at 46% non-chill filter, which you'll find with all of our kind of main range, all of the core range, obviously, minimum of 46 non-chill filter. So in terms of on the nose for this one, I get some similarities from the double cask. It's almost like it's the bigger brother of double cask, even on the nose already, because I do get that bourbon comes through already. It's much fuller, more robust on the nose, even though they're both at 46. The fruity element comes through in this one more, and this is where I'm talking about how I feel like the PX subdues a lot of that in the double cask. But these really start to come through more prominently on the nose in the 15. So I get the salinity for sure to start with. Wonderful, the wonderful bourbon's there. Orange peel, and there's a bit of spice as well. That's probably a bit kind of gingery.
Yeah,
to start with the spice.
So again, Christoph?
Ginger biscuits.
I was thinking like the gingerbread, that sweeter ginger rather than
it goes more into that kind of ginger snap for me, more on the palate. But I definitely get the gingers there, and I think it's that malty ginger for sure.
Yeah, and crystallized ginger too.
Yeah.
It's a much sort of lighter, brighter nose on it. Yeah, the fruits sort of jump out of the glass on this one.
Very much so, we do, and that's like I said, it's almost like it's not free of the sherry, but it's because the sherry's not there, and as much it's giving these flavours more chance to come to the fore.
See, I always think of this one like, when you get those whiskies that are fully matured in bourbon, but you swear that you're getting those sherry notes in it. This is one that reminds me of that. Yes, it's got the very sharp finish at the end, but those typical sherry notes are kind of in there from the bourbon already.
Yes, and I think that's again why it's such a short, sharp finish in that sherry, Soren, because we don't want to overemphasize that. Again, it's all about finding the balance.
So what is the first fill to second fill then on this one?
It's going to be about 50-50, son. Yep. To be totally honest, I think that will probably move again, depending on the stocks and as the guys kind of nose and taste as the stock matures. But it gets married together probably for about 12 months.
Yeah.
Before they can get that 6 weeks.
Yeah, I know. We had this on the table down at Bristol a few years ago, and couldn't get rid of John. He was drinking this quite profusely.
It's brilliant. I think it's honestly, like I said, it's Campbelltown at last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely drinkable.
Yeah.
It's probably my favourite from the range, to be fair.
I think I'd agree with you there, Andy. I think I
love it.
I do love the Victoriana, and I think that is a special jam, but it's kind of between taking out the 25, obviously, for price reasons and things like that. But the 15 and the 18 are two that I think you could, if you had them two in your stable, you've got a drink for every day.
Well, that's it. And it's like I said, if somebody was to ask me, like, well, what does Campbelltown whiskey taste like? That's what I'm pouring you. That's where I would start you for sure.
Yeah, you get loads more of that like salinity and that kind of like sort of slight sooty, smoky elements to it, which are just like really, really nice. I love that sort of profile.
Yeah, no, totally. And the mad thing is, in terms of, so you see that there are small amounts of peat kind of going through some of the expression, but I wouldn't call any of them peated whiskies, if that makes sense. So I mean, in the 15-year-old, you're only talking like 5% of the stock in there's got some peat in it. So it does just bring a very, very subtle kind of wisp of smoke to it, which I really, really enjoy.
See, that's an interesting one, because I mean, you know, I've spoke to a few people and they've spoke about the 15 as being quite a peated whiskey. I've never got that myself, and like you say, if it's only 5%, then yeah.
I think it definitely is like it's more of a smokiness rather than something that's like absolutely identifiably peat.
I mean, I always class this as like that cask char smoke. You know, it's light. It's not dominant. It's you know, you don't realise it's kind of been put there rather than just matured into there.
No, definitely, and I think on the palate, I definitely get that kind of more robustness comes through. It's very much clearer on the palate that it is a good bit older than double cask. It's the flavours are all there. The spiciness, I think it turns more into that stem ginger for me that Christoph was getting on the nose. Maybe almost get into a bit peppery. That fruity note's still there. And yeah, that wonderful wisp of smoke that comes through that I get in the end on the finish. It's just, yeah, it's wonderful.
I mean, some of the notes, yeah, I mean, Fiona's getting the orchard spice, bit of sulphur and the smoke, rubber wellies. I don't personally get any sulphur on this, but I can quite see where she's coming from.
It's just light, but it's there.
Yeah. And I think go on.
Sorry, you go, son.
No, I was going to say, and I think like Claire said, it's a lot more rounder than the double cast, so that's probably the extended maturation in there that just balances it out. Yeah, no, and that's it. It's matured and it's developed, and it's like I said, it's like the bigger brother. And it's brought all those characters together. And I think one of the things I'll say is, please feel free to add some water. I don't. But then that's because I'll drink this stuff like it is, like juice. But it can help. I think especially when we go on to the next one, the Victoriana, with that being a wee bit stronger. But yeah, please feel free if any of you guys want to add water, and go from there. I mean, one thing that I find is that 15-year sort of mark does seem to be almost the perfect age for a lot of distilleries. So, you know, you go through some ranges and you say, oh, the 15, the 15, the 15, the 15, and obviously we're sat on the 15 now and kind of saying, you know, it's there.
totally agree, Son, and I think it's that. For me, it's between about 12 and 15. Really seems to be that butter zone for the balance between the casks and the distillery character. And again, it's obviously that range is going to define. It's more going to be determined by the casks being used, the fill strength, and the maturation, obviously. But yeah, where it's probably more in the 12 region for Loch Lomond, but certainly the 15 for me is wonderful.
Yeah. What else have we got? Yeah, Ed's getting the barbecued notes. Oh, Jamie said that, so Ed's agreeing with him. What else have we got?
Yeah, Vim's getting the old peppery spice as well, which is good to see. Yeah.
Yep, Adrian's getting an ashy dryness on the finish. Vim's getting the ashy charry oaky note.
Yeah.
I'm just getting to make a big smoky bacon sandwich.
Yeah, there is a slight meaty barbecuiness to it as well. I think it's a bit chewier in the good sense.
I mean, again, is there anybody not liking it? Or anybody prefer the double cask to this? Are we all onto this one now? Doug, you prefer the double cask?
Yeah, I think it's a question of my taste rather than anything else. I think I've just developed a taste for sherried whiskies, but it is really beautiful.
No, I mean, a lot of people have always said you had bad taste, but I can kind of see where you're coming from on this one.
Outrageous cribs.
The 15 for me used to be my daily drinker, but I haven't had an open bottle for a little while. I think, like a lot of people, I've become a bit guilty of neglecting core ranges and constantly going for a new flavour. But tasting something like this again kind of shows that you don't need to be chasing the next bottle all the time. I'm definitely going to be cracking open the bottle I've got on the side within the next week after trying this again. So great jam for me.
Yeah, fully agree with you there, Simon. Yeah,
I think on that subject as well, and don't take this as an opportunity to increase the price, Gary, because I will hunt you down. But for a 15-year-old of this presentation against its competitors, it's really well priced as well, and it's widely accessible, widely available, which I really, really like. I mean, what is it? It's normally like 45, 50 quid or something?
Normally, yeah, between about 50 and 55, and it's been it's been something we've been trying to stick to all the way through, to be totally honest, Andy, is being very conscious of the price points. We know we are small. We've gone through quite the journey in the last kind of 6 years from relaunching the range to where we are now. But it's knowing that, I mean, Campbelltown, I think amongst a kind of select whiskey group like you guys, you all know of Campbelltown, you know what it is and why it is. But to that kind of broader malt whiskey audience, it's maybe not as well known. So it's all about pricing it at a very accessible price point. And again, going up the range so that there are different flavours and different price points going from the bottom all the way up to the top, so that you can make it accessible for different consumers that are after different things.
I mean, just to let you know, it's 46 quid on Master of Malt.
Oh, I think I might be able to buy up a couple of bottles of that.
And if you buy it via Top Cashback, you get something like 8% back.
Yeah,
it's a steal. It's a steal for that, isn't it? Really, seriously.
Yeah.
I love there is that dirtiness of Glen Scotia in here. There's that little bit of dirty, oily bilge. Yeah, that's what I love about a Glen Scotia.
That industrial Campbelltown style.
Is that there's a lot of cask char in there. Rather than that peat. I mean, 5%. You don't need much peated spirit to make something peaty anyway. But
no.
Yeah, I mean that's
that dirtiness coming through.
I absolutely adore the Campbelltown distilleries, and just that sort of slightly peated profile is just brilliant because you get so much of that distillate character. Producing such brilliant spirit. It's nice that it's not sort of drowned in wood or anything like that. It's something that Campbelltown do really, really well.
And just for, obviously, we do have one person from Canada. Is this exported to Canada, Gary?
Yes, yeah. Canada's almost as more difficult a market as the US, unfortunately. We do have distributors out there, but yeah, it's a bit of a minefield.
Yeah.
Does Kensington have it? Kensington one?
Kensington has had it. I think it's kind of sporadic supply, unfortunately. Getting it out there currently.
I think Andrew's pretty good at getting great whiskey.
Yeah, no, Andrew's a Glen Scotia fan, so he will hoover up whatever he can get as soon as it gets out there. So yeah, for sure, definitely.
Well, hopefully I'll be out there soon. I'll put some in my bag for you, Chantal.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Shall we jump on to Victoriana?
Oh, already have. Sorry.
No, quite right, Dave. Quite right. So Victoriana, here we are. So one of the wonderful things about Victoriana is that it helps tell so much of our story. I mean, even down to the design, the bottle itself, the fact that it's in the green glass is all a nod to the Victorian heritage of Campbelltown as a region, and obviously Glen Scotia as well. In terms of the glass, the whole point of that being that back in the Victorian era, not everybody was quite as literate as we would expect. So ultimately, the way they defined liquids or the contents of glass was through the colour of the glass. So green was alcohol, blue was medicine, brown was poison, and everything else went in clear. And it was just that very simple. You knew you drink as much of the green, probably some of the blue, and you just leave the brown well alone. So that's the nod to that, and the whole rationale for the liquid in the bottle for this is us trying to recreate our interpretation of the modern interpretation even of the classic Victorian style Campbelltown malt and flavour profile. So it's a real nice wee complex beast. Mine is at 54.2, which I think is what is in the packs. It is indeed. So bottled at cask strength, and you'll need to stick with me. This has got a nice wee crazy, quite complex recipe, which I hope you'll all get reflected when we come through to the kind of tasting. So we start off with first fill and second fill bourbons. We will then marry them together for a period of 12 months. We'll then split that between 30% into PX sherry, 70% into heavily charred casks. They'll then sit in them for 12 months. We'll then bring them back, marry them together for a further 6 months and refill bourbon, and then we'll go ahead and we'll bottle that at cask strength. So the rationale for this one being a non-age statement is it's more about creating a very specific flavour profile, and again the being no age gives us that free rein to be able to dip in and out of the various cask parcels to be able to come to that. So let's say bottled. This one's full natural colour, non-chill filtered and bottled 54.2. So nose wise, you obviously get the hit of the alcohol straight off the bat. It's 54%. You're not gonna. There's a wonderful the spiciness there is now. It's gone from that kind of gingery in the 15. It's now more into a kind of white pepper for me on the nose. It's definitely a bit more of the smoke. I'm also getting some of the sherry notes coming through as well, that wonderful drying sherry. The raisins and the dried fruits coming through. Yeah, it's got bags going on in the nose. The fruits in this one, again, you're going more from the orange, it's now into more, let's say more the dried fruits almost. There's maybe some kind of cranberry in there as well, I think. What's everybody else thinking?
I want to smell it all day.
Yeah, even on the nose, you're already getting, like I said, it's the complexity that's in that recipe comes across already in the nose. There are so many layers to it already.
This is fit, Gary. I've never tried the Victoriana before. It's my first time trying it, and it's lovely.
Oh, wonderful. So I think it's definitely a good idea doing this one at full cask strength and then coming back to this is one that I will actively advocate putting some water in. Certainly when you're trying it for kind of some of the first times, because it really just opens it out. It lets the flavours kind of come more to the fore, and it gives them more a chance to shine individually, and it's easier for you to pick them out ultimately.
I mean, I know when I had this on the table, this is what kind of brought everybody to the table wanting to try the Victoriana. You know, it's an interesting one, and I always, when I try it, I always find that this is almost totally different to the core range, but in the other hand, it's exactly like the core range, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it's like I think because it takes all of the elements that are in the core range and puts them on steroids. Ultimately, you get the extreme versions of all these characteristics, and that's what we're shooting for. It is that old school style Campbelltown malt where all of this stuff would have been there in abundance. I mean, thankfully we didn't go for the texture of it because you'd have been able to stand a spoon up in it if it was of the old style. But yeah, it's trying to give it that real old school feel ultimately. Give it a bash.
Again, you know, £70 a bottle, and the prices I'm quoting are Master of Malt. So if anybody knows anywhere cheaper or anything, please feel happy to say. But
I think we're 65 quid on our own site.
Right.
Free delivery. No pressure.
But I mean, 65, 70 quid a bottle. It's still that, you know, it's bloody worth it, isn't it?
These small batch releases, Gary?
No. So there's a bit of history there, Dave. So Victoriana's gone through a bit of a journey. It started off at 51.5. And we create it in batches anyway. And we got a pushback from some markets, say 51.5 is a bit of a strange number. Is that cask strength? Is it not? So we decided that for the next bottling, we would do it as a batch. We would number it as a batch, and we would just put it out at whatever strength it was. So that came out at 54.8, labelled it as cask strength. Batch number 1, out it went into the world, and we were all happy about it. What we quite didn't fathom was in terms of the legwork that's required with a lot of the markets, South Africa and the US being one of the two of the kind of big ones, where anytime you make that kind of change to the front label, it's then got to go through TTB and the various approval processes. Never mind the kind of back end stuff that then has to go through with all the customers. And it ultimately became such a headache for us, and we couldn't really cope with that amount of work at that stage. That we made a conscious decision to continue to produce it in batches. But what we did was we looked to try and find the absolute strongest strength that we were confident we could produce on an ongoing basis, and that was 34.2. So it's still at cask strength, but it's not a specifically unnumbered batch. Still produced in batches, but from a kind of logistical point of view, yeah, not individually numbered, unfortunately.
I was going to say that was the one thing everybody's trying to find, the 001 releases out there now. So I think that was your first one, wasn't it?
Yes, I back that. Yes, no. Batch 1 was the 54.8. The initial one was 51.5.
No, but I mean it was labelled 001, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Batch 001. Yes, yeah.
This is very different to that. I had the batch 001. I find this a lot sweeter.
Oh, there we go. Craig's got one.
Yeah.
So I think on the palate, you undoubtedly get the hit of the alcohol comes at you first. But one of the things that always surprises me is that it's almost kind of smoothed out as quickly as it's there. And this one, of all the others, again, the balance of flavors is there, but it almost comes through in waves. So you start off, you get that smoke comes through on the back of the alcohol for me, from the heavily charred casks.
I do think the smoke does enhance it on this one. It does kind of make it a jam of its own sort of, you know, it just propels it to another level.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the fruitiness and the sweetiness in here, it's almost like a kind of blackcurrant jam that I get through Victoriana.
Mm.
And it's, again, that mouthfeel's got a wonderful body to it. That almost slightly meaty chewiness comes through, the kind of barbecue-esque notes I think are just magnificent. And again, this, like I said, I'm happy if everyone wants to try this with a spot of water. I'm going to try and...
I was just about to say, has anybody actually watered it? Yeah. Has anybody watered it down to about the 46%, or are we just adding a little bit of water?
It's like, I think I commented a little bit earlier, it's dangerously drinkable strength, to be honest, for me. I don't really get too much of a hit from the booze. It's really well balanced, quite intense, but to me it's more of the initial flavour hit than the alcohol, to be fair. So I could drink this all day at 54.2. I'm going to try it with water.
Whenever I drink it, I try and have it at the end of the night for that very reason, because I think I could probably do a pint of it in a tour.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. It is very easy to drink.
Yeah, no, again, and at 54.2, like, I think if we'd all had this blind and had to kind of guess at ABV, we'd probably say high 40s into the 50s. I don't think anybody would guess it was pushing 55.
No. Has anybody not tried this before? So Andy, you haven't, Michael hasn't. What are you? Obviously we've heard from Andy. What are you thinking, Michael and Adrian? How are you finding it?
It's a great lamb. I really like it.
Mm.
It's great. I have watered mine down just a little, and it's great. It's got a lot of the flavors from the early ones, but a much longer finish. And I've just put one in my basket.
Good man, Adrian. Good man. I think certainly with water, I start to get the dried fruits really come through. So the kind of raisins and sultanas. The spice that was kind of peppery on the nose goes more into kind of cloves and cinnamon. And it's kind of all coming together. It's coming together basically like Christmas cake for me in this one.
I think you did a great job.
I think it's. And you go, Craig?
I think you did a great job in the fact that you've gone for that Victorian style whiskey. So you've got that lovely oiliness and dirtiness that we associate with Campbelltown, but you've not gone over the top with the smoke, the peatedness. It still allows that Glen Scotia distillery note to come through. And I think it's just a perfect balance where you've got that mix of all the three elements, you know, the oiliness, that smoke and the fruitiness there.
Definitely, and I think that's where using the heavily charred casks instead of the peat really pays the dividends on it. And I think it really comes through on the finish for me. But I think as to what Si was saying, this for me is just a wonderful end of the night drum, and it's pouring a big old tumbler and just spending your time, taking the time with it, because every time I go back to this, whether it's on the nose or on the palate, I pick something different up. And it's like without being too cliched, it's one of these ones that takes you on a journey. But it does, because it's one of these ones where it's good fun to get in, and it's when you're in the mindset for working a wee bit harder on a drum. It's like the polar opposite, where double casks, you're literally just coming from the house from work and you want a whiskey and that's what you want. This is where you're quite happy just sitting, taking that time, and you're quite happy to nose for 20 minutes and get lost in a whiskey.
See, I find this one to me is one of those whiskies that it can be very simple to drink it, but then it can also be extremely complex. It's you know, you can drink it either way. You can sit there and really strip it down to the bare bones, or you can just drink it. And either way, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think it's why, as you said earlier as well, it resonates. It is one that consistently resonates at festivals. And it's one that will bring a lot of people to the table that are saying, "Oh, I've been told I need to come and try this Victoria."
Yeah, I've had a bottle in my cupboard for about 2 years, I think, and it's just been sort of sat there. It's one I'll always get to. I'll get round to it. And now, having tasted it, I'm going to open it next week. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I've just every time I pick it up and smell it, I'm getting something different. It's just fantastic. I absolutely love it.
And again, this is one.
Have you tried it with spot of water?
I haven't got any water in it now.
Again, this is one we had down in Bristol, and we couldn't get rid of John from drinking this one either. It was, yeah, it's like a lurker. He stands there and waits till the bottle's empty before he moves on.
Yeah.
And that's only for the next bottle. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think he visited any of the tables that day.
No, I don't think he did. I think we started with the double cask, and by the time we'd got to the 25 and he'd drunk the full bottle of 25, it was like closing time.
Just kicking out time, yeah.
Yeah. And he was pretending to ask lots of questions just so he could have extra drinks.
Hey, I brought everyone to your stand, mate. You know.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah.
Including me.
I think they were just filling the glass up for him, though. Have we just lost Gary? Oh, we've lost our host.
Excellent. Right.
Just have a
World
pass.
Whiskey Blending it is.
Oh, he's back.
Sorry, mate. 4-year-old just found a spider, and you'd have thought the world was gonna.
We thought you must have gone for a toilet break already.
Oh no. Got plenty to go for there.
Yeah. So obviously we know Adrian's just bought one. So, and again, anybody picking this one now as the favourite over the 15? Are we still on the 15?
Gary already knows Victoria's my favourite of the range.
Sorry, what was that?
Gary already knows the Victoriana's my favourite of the range.
Yeah.
It's going to take some beating this one. Like, I'm all over it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Andy? Where are you thinking with this in the 15?
I'm kind of torn, to be honest with you, because I really like that Victoriana. That was fantastic. Very, very multi-dimensional. I think I'm still leaning towards the 15 though, purely because it's, you know, majority ex-bourbon, which is right on my street, and also the price point as well.
Yeah.
Which is still to me like a bit more, well, maybe not bang for your buck, I don't know, by comparison. I think they're kind of on a par in their own way. But both very different and both really enjoyable. So it's going to be difficult to choose between them, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think the correct answer is spend a night on the 15 and finish on the Victoriana.
Can't argue. Yeah.
There you go.
Any particular ages in this one, Gary?
So there's currently, I would say it probably averages out about 12, John. There is some 18-year-old stock in there, but yeah, probably on average about 12.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Ed?
Yeah, they're both very sort of even in my mind. I think I'm quite like Andy in the sense that I'm probably still leaning a little bit towards the 15. I think it's just got that little bit of extra kind of fruitiness, which I think balances out some of those slightly more kind of oaky, peppery notes.
Yeah. What about you, Jason?
Always a fan of this one. Absolutely. It just takes me back to when batch 1 came out, and actually Iain gave us a glass of it at the distillery, and he said, just try this. And every time I open it, it just takes me back to that moment in time. It is so, as Andy said before, multi-dimensional. There's so much going on in there. And the cash jar is absolutely perfect as well.
What about you, Warren? How are you finding this one?
The Victoriana, I love it. I'd drink it all day, but just ridiculously dangerous at 54. But yeah, it's beautiful.
It's definitely one that gets your drunk legs up, 100%.
How are you finding this one, Suzanne?
I love this. I think this obviously is made with the other casks and more complexity, but it is like the same kind of feel like I had for the double oak, but strong, or like more powerful.
Yeah. Fiona?
I think it's one of the things I know I've got another couple to go through, but as you'll find they're very different individually, but you find those family similarities kind of going up and down, and it's all about pulling on those various levers, but making sure that Campbelltown style just stays there throughout. That's a meal I like that we're stray too far from. But we'll just go off on one or two other directions depending on the release.
Yeah. How are you finding it, Fiona?
It's my favourite so far.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely beautiful, especially with water, which just adds so much.
Marina?
Yeah.
It's probably my least favourite, but it's still pretty good. So I think I would probably tend to lean towards the 15 or the double cask for just an everyday drinker as well. Just fantastic bang for your buck.
Yeah, I mean, what I do find interesting, Gary, I don't know whether you find this, that when you compare the 15 and the Victoriana, it's one of those, because of the extra ABV, it really splits it away from the 15 just for the pure alcohol kick rather than the sort of flavours. But I do find the 15 more complex. No. He's blinking, so he's still there.
Oh, lost you there, Torrent.
Just saying, I find the 15 a lot more complex than the Victoriana.
Okay, that's not one of. I think no, that's not one I've heard before. And I think probably because of I find more of those layers in the Victoriana versus the 15. I think it's definitely a very different complexity. And I think there is where the complexities obviously in the 15 coming more from that spirit through the maturation, but for the Victoriana it's coming through that use of the casks and the blending. But yeah, no, I think they're both cracking drams, definitely.
Oh, definitely.
Shall we move on to 18?
Why not?
Why not, indeed? So here we go. This wonderful blingy wee bad boy. So, 18-year-old is a wonderful mix of refill bourbon, refill American oak. It's in casks for 17 years before they are then married together into first fill Oloroso sherry for the final 12 months before being bottled at 18 years old. Natural colour, non-chill filtered, 46%. So it's got a wonderful light golden colour to it. I think that's more from the refill casks. Obviously, it's not got that real deep heavy that you'd maybe expect from an 18. On the nose, the sherry influence is definitely there. You get that wonderful drying, but there's a floral note that's there. Fruity characters there as well, but it's certainly more tropical. And then that classic kind of salty caramel, Glen Scotia Campbelltown note as well. Good health, guys. The smoothness on that one for me is just mind-blowing. It's you expect it from something a wee bit older, but the difference from the 15 to the 18 on that is just crazy for me. And I think one of the things that's not there is probably more noticeable to me is that a lot of times you'll get into that 18-year-old and the wood really does start to dominate, or it's not necessarily dominate, but it's always that it can be that first hit that you get with a lot of 18s. But it's not there for me. You get, and I think that's that Oloroso finish, obviously. It's just helping again, letting that distillery character sing through. The fruit, that tropical fruit, it's definitely more, and you do get it when fruit. If you start off with a fruit character in a distillery, as it gets older and older, it does move more into that tropical style. And this for me is guava, almost kind of slightly overripe pineapple. If you think the pineapple, it starts to go that soft, really intensely sweet way. balanced with that wonderful drying sherry note, is just magnificent.
I think quite a few people are already saying pineapple, and that's one thing I find on this is a lot of pineapple.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looking at the price of this one, £86.50 on Master of Malt. Obviously, there are other shops available to buy from, so but I think this is a cracking dram.
Yeah, it's again, it's very, very, very drinkable for an 18-year-old. It's dangerously drinkable. Like if you're spending 80 quid on a bottle of whiskey, you don't want to drink most of it in one night. Well, I mean, you can't.
I mean, Simon's come out with the best one so far, Yorkshire pudding. Is that with or without gravy, Simon? Where is
Definitely
it?
Definitely without.
Without, yeah.
I want to know what you make your Yorkshire puddings with.
Glen Scotia IT.
Pineapples, apparently.
Yeah, so I find it quite almost quite citrusy, and it's got the same sort of like the ashiness that you got back from the 15. It's that sort of sooty ashy kind of note in the background. It's almost seems almost more nose prickly as well to me. Like the alcohol burn almost seems more tingly or spicy than the Victoriana.
Yeah, so again, this one's full natural colour, 46% non-chill filtered.
I mean, the interesting thing is that I think a few people are saying it. Claire said it. You know, there's plenty of smoke in there, and which kind of surprises me. That to me, there's more smoke on this one than there is on the 15.
Yeah. No peat or heavy char cask used in this one at all.
But it's interesting that you do pick up the smoke a little bit more.
No, definitely, and it's a note that can crop up through quite a few kind of Campbelltown malts. It's not one that we overtly talk about because people then automatically assume that you're using peat or heavy char casks. But it is one that does crop up, especially in something like this. I think it's just, again, the smoothness and the richness that come to it are just wonderful. And I think I saw a couple of people say it's that slightly hay note on it as well. I really get the salinity on it. But again, is that...
Yeah, Dave just pulled up. It's $84.95 on House of Malt.
Best get it from the distillery, free shipping, and 85 quid from the Loch Lomond whisky shop. That's the best price I can find.
There you go.
Free shipping
Dave,
as well.
Appreciate you doing the legwork on that, Dave.
Sorry?
Said I appreciate you doing the legwork on that for me. Cheers.
I've got a bottle downstairs, I'm sure. I'm sure I've got everything apart from the 25. So
yeah, I think that pineapple note seems to be, everybody seems to be picking that one up. So
yeah. So again, we're doing long slow fermentation as we do at Loch Lomond. So the average at Glen Scotia is 128.8 hours. So I think the first wash comes off at 70, and then we'll start taking off up to about 145 hours.
So 145 at top end. It's a lot then, yeah.
Yeah, no. But we'll leave a couple over the weekend and things. It's a wonderful mix, and it does just as with Loch Lomond, just brings a real wonderful fruitiness into that beer that really I think comes through as that fruity notes throughout the range. And again, it's during the maturation it will change and evolve depending on the casks, but it's that fruity note that I think kind of carries through. One of those strings that carries through the whole range.
And that's interesting because obviously you're talking a lot about the fruity note there, and I know when we was at Loch Lomond as well, looking around there was an emphasis on that fruity note coming through after the fermentation. So, you know, it's something you're obviously looking for in it all. So
yes, no, definitely so. And I think it's one of the things that helps set us apart. We know that that's not necessarily something our neighbours are doing over the road. So it gives us that uniqueness within the region. And I think it's one of the wonderful things I love about Campbelltown is that, and I know regions are probably as a whole becoming less relevant, and it's down to the prevalence of the distilleries in some of the regions. I mean, you can't really be a Speyside distillery anymore because there are so many of them. You need your own point of difference. But with there only being 3 of us in Campbelltown, we can all really kind of push in that direction and stick to that one unique style that I really don't feel like you get anywhere else.
And that's an interesting one. I mean, a lot of people are picking up the tobacco notes in this, and that's certainly something I get a lot of. So,
yeah, it's that kind of leathery tobacco-y that comes through. That's through the kind of slightly older spirit as well. Craig, what do you think of that one?
I love it. I like the fact on the nose. For me, it's not as oaky as a lot of 18-year-olds you would get from other distilleries. It's quite light. It's also almost got a bit of youthfulness to it on the nose. But then on the palate, I get that Campbelltown. I get Glen Scotia coming through straight away. You know, that nice mix of the fruitiness. Like you said, that sort of sweet tobacco note. And I just love the fact it's almost like it's got that really oily, sort of really high protein barley note there for me. I just think it's a nice one. Obviously, I prefer the Victoriana, but I think I'd be very torn between the 15 and the 18 to which one I'd choose next.
Is anybody trying the 18 for the first time today? What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I really like this. Just like lots of fruitiness coming through it. And definitely that kind of grilled pineapple, like some chariness on it. With the sort of the pineapple juice leaking through, and it's been sort of weakened a little bit by the flames. Yeah, very enjoyable.
What about you, Chris? How are you finding it? I think you said you was first time into it.
Yeah, it's first time on the 18. I find it's closer to the Victoriana than the 15. I wouldn't really compare the 15 and 18 for it there. I'd be in 2 very different moods.
Yeah.
For having those, whereas the 18 and Victoriana are a bit closer.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd know which one to choose though, because I love the Victoriana. That was the winner when I went to the distillery. But this is amazing as well. So I kind of want all of them.
But I think what you're saying there, Chris, it comes back to one of my points at the very start, is that I think across the range, I very much view them as different occasions, or like you said, it's different moods for me in terms of across the range. There is a whiskey there that will work for me, whatever mood I'm in, whatever kind of time of day, whatever I'm kind of feeling like at that point in time. There's one there to go. Yeah, as Jamie said, just buy one of them all. It'll be fine.
Who else hasn't tried this one before then? So how are you finding it, Claire?
I'm actually preferring it to the 15. I like the nose on the 15, but not the palate so much. I can't stand the nose on the 18, but the palate's awesome. I find the nose on the 18 quite vegetal, which I don't like, but the palate's great.
Ironic.
Yeah. Compared to the Victoriana, you can't compare it. It's apples and pears. You'd have to have one of each. It's simple. Yeah.
Yeah, agree with that. What about you, Warren? How are you finding this one?
Yeah, 18, love it. I actually, someone bought me a bottle last year at Christmas, Christmas just gone, which is just finished, just hit the recycling bag. Love it. Beautiful.
What about you, Aid? Have you got this one in your basket yet?
No, not yet, but no, it's lovely. It's such a smooth dram. It's the smokiness that came through was unexpected, but the fruits there are lovely and complex. It's really smooth, but I think this is lovely, but I'll stick with the Victoriana in my basket, I think, today.
Yeah. What about you, Simon? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, we've got one more to go, Adrian. I'm sure we'll try and convince you.
Yeah. I'm worried for him when we get to the 25.
I must say, I think this is a dangerous jam, though. I reckon I could do some serious damage to a bottle of this in an evening.
Yeah.
I think it's so you could just sit and sip and drink, sip and drink.
This is completely high-end TV tumbler stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
How
they're
about
out
you
here.
with the Victoriana though? Because I enjoyed it so much, I got to the point where I would just pour it into the heavy bottom tumbler. So it's nice to revisit it today, but it's a very different dram compared to the batch one. Yeah.
I think that's probably my problem with the 18 is because I do find it so easy to drink. I probably don't give the dram the time it deserves. So it's the only bottle I haven't owned because I just think in my head, an 18-year-old, I should be respecting it a little bit more than just like necking it back like I have been with this dram.
Yeah,
100% with you on that side. It's too easy to drink for me.
Yeah, it sounds silly, but it's too easy.
100%. If I'm paying 85 quid for a bottle of whiskey, I feel like I should take more time on it.
Yeah, instead of a Friday and Saturday night and it's gone.
Yeah, it would be a shame to drink it too quickly.
Yeah,
exactly. How are you
exactly.
finding it, John? You were nodding your head there. I know you like it.
I love it. But yeah, it's that dangerous sippability that just makes it an expensive night. But even though I reckon it'd be a bloody good night.
Yeah, definitely.
Not a great morning after though.
Yeah, I think this one would last quite a while in my house. I'm not really feeling this one. It's just sort of tinned pineapples with loads of brown sugar on it. I'm just personally not feeling this one. I'd much rather go for another bottle of that 15.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. What about you, Michael? How are you finding this? Have you had this before?
Yes, I had it before. I like it. It's very complex, but I still love the Victoriana more because I'm nosing all the other whiskies, and the Victoriana has such a complex layers of aromas on the nose and on the palate. I think this will be my favorite this afternoon.
Yeah, get that. What about you, Craig?
It does do very well in Germany.
Sorry, Gary?
I'm saying the Victoriana does very, very well in Germany, Michael. I think it obviously ticks a lot of boxes for your palates.
Yep, I think it's available in Germany.
Definitely.
How are you finding it, Craig?
Which one?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I keep forgetting we've got two on. The other Craig.
Hi, Zoran. I prefer the 15 in the Victoriana, which I think are superb. This is very, very pleasant. It's the first time I've experienced the 18, but I prefer the 15 in the Victoriana, I have to say.
Okay. What about you, Dave? See you pouring something. Is this another 18 already? Or?
Yeah. I needed a drop more 18. I love it.
Yeah, I get that. Suzanne?
This is lovely. My favorite is still the Victoriana because it has more of the, I have a weakness for the caramel kind of things. But this is absolutely gorgeous. I didn't get the tropical notes on the nose, but on the palate there's lots of tropical fruits, and I'm totally with whoever said something about grilled pineapple. It's lovely.
Fiona?
Probably number 2 for me.
It's my second favourite of the night.
Behind?
Victoriana.
Behind Victoriana.
Sweet notes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just that little bit of sulphur, which I'm not a sulphur person.
right, yeah. Is that same for you, Christoph? Would you agree?
Yeah, it's the same for me. The 18 is gorgeous, but I still prefer the Victoriana. As Michael said, for all the layers of aromas and flavors and complexity. But it's just a little bit behind they are really close together. I wouldn't mind having a bottle of both. I have the Victoriana. I might need to buy an 18.
What about you, Marina?
I quite like this one actually. It's probably I kind of agree with Gary on this one. I think it's a different mood dram to the 15 or the double cast or the Victoriana, so it's a different time of day dram. I think that, and I think this is kind of needs a wee bit more time to sort of savor and just respect it a little bit more. I quite like the tartness from it. It's like Granny Smith apples and that sort of real sharpness to it that I quite like.
No, get that.
Super. So should we move on to the girl 25, the end of the top of the range?
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No.
The fill level on this tells you everything you really need to know.
That Gary drunk it all before he sent it. Yeah, I'm beating you there, Gary.
I think you might be so. No,
yeah. I think we're going for a bottle kill today.
So this is probably one of the most straightforward in terms of the makeups. So this has been in refill bourbon for 24 years, and then into first fill bourbon for the last 12 months. Bottled at 48.8 natural colour, non-chill filtered. Give it this one. I've poured this one just to give it a wee bit of time.
Gary, is that a strict 12 months, or is it just like played by ear as to what it?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, as with everything, we'll do it in batches. That's the currently we're going at 12 months, but it will be that. So that'll be kind of what we're shooting at. But it might go 10 months. It might go 13, 14 months. But that's all down to, like I said, the kind of black art of the blender and making sure that it's all working in harmony. But again, you're getting the similarity between the batches and the releases. So on the nose for this one, obviously, I'm getting it's the sea salt I get straight off the bat on this one for sure. I agree with Andy in terms of that. It's marzipan. It's a real wonderful almondy sweet note as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that sort of nutty almondy note, it really is instant in there. It's beautiful.
This is beautiful. The best price I've found is at at House of Malt at $299.95.
And that's a cracking price.
It's $355 at Master of Malt. I think $355.
Yeah, $355. Yeah.
£400 on the website, on the Glen Scotia website.
Yeah, this is one that kind of since we launched it in 2017 has kind of just gone through the roof, and probably more so in the markets you would expect, kind of out in the Asian markets, they just cannot get enough of this stuff.
It's a big winner as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's won double gold at San Francisco the last 3 years, so it means it's got one of the 10 to get a platinum award within Scotch, which we're obviously all delighted about. It's just a cracking dram.
Aye, this is cracker.
Sorry, you said it was 300 in House of Malts.
300,
House of Malt, yeah. I'll put a link in now. 1 minute.
I found it in a website on Germany that is shipping to France for £200.
Hey, good man.
I'm quite surprised by the gap of price. It's a third less.
I mean, it used to, I think, sort of this time last year, Gary, I think you'll back me up, it was about 250, wasn't it? It's really picked up. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's that was really driven by the demand. The demand and the effect on the kind of stock levels.
Is it so? Who's not had this before then? I think there's going to be a few of you, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a good old selection.
Probably not sober enough when I've had it, but yeah. This has usually been a whiskey show towards the end.
Yeah.
It's one of these ones where you'll get, and you'll all have been there at many of the shows where somebody will either just come up to the table and they'll go, "What's your oldest whiskey?" or "What's your best whiskey?" But I'm always quite happy to be an arsehole and make them start at the start and work their way up. So yeah, they'll have had at least 4 drams before they get to this. But the flip side to that, I quite like how Callum at Glenfarclas, when he's sometimes doing a tasting, he'll start with their 25. And the rationale being that, listen, if I'm going to give you my best dram, why would I not give you that when your palate's in its freshest? I get that as well.
No, I mean, this is, you know, I mean, take away the price tag on this one, but this is my favourite in the range. I just think it's gorgeous.
I think this is one where I would have to agree with Simon, what he said with the 18, where I do love this whiskey, but I probably don't give it the respect it's due, in the sense that I like it so much, I'm quite happy to pour it and end up drinking it.
And that's the problem. Now you look at the price tag, now it's gone up even more. It's one of those where Adrian's just looking now, look, he's like, oh, I don't know. You can quite easily finish a bottle of this off. It is absolutely tremendous stuff. I mean, I'm lucky I managed to get a few bottles of this when it was the old price. So yeah, I don't mind drinking this.
I'm on my last bottle at the old price. I'm not looking forward to the new price.
I've got a couple on the shelf, so I'm lucky.
So I think on the palate again, it's just so soft and smooth, and it just slides down. Mouthfeels get that wonderful oily texture that we're kind of come used to throughout there. The maritime again on the palate is very pronounced, but it's now almost it's almost as if it's gone through that exotic fruit and it's come back into more of the citrus and kind of green apple, maybe more kind of red apple with the sweetness. I think
there's a lot
less of the tropical again.
Yeah, a lot of orchard fruit on this one, isn't there now?
Yeah. And again, I think
underlying
that's
dirtiness.
But it's again through to that with it being in refill versus first fill, so it's not had as much of the wood influence through the maturation.
I mean, the thing I found with this, Gary, when the first bottle I had, I opened it and I took 2 or 3 drams out in one evening, and it was one of those where you kind of put it away for a special occasion, but when you came back to it, it was just such a different dram to what you could remember it being, and it was like it was almost somebody had changed the whiskey in that bottle, and it's like we've said, you know, it's onto that really soft fruitiness that's just so easy to drink.
No, totally, Son. And again, with it being, I don't think taking that blind, you would say that was 48. I think I'd probably say that was 43, 46.
So I'll come back.
I could demolish a bottle of this in a night. It's beautiful.
It's almost faultless.
Again, 25. What I think a couple of the guys have said, I think the only fault is that it is too easy to drink. For a whiskey at that price, you want to, you don't want to have to force yourself to take time on it. But I would need to do it on that one, and I do need to do it on that one. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful whiskey.
I think for the price, I want it to not be as nice, because then I would take longer to drink it.
No, but that's what I'm saying, Paul. You can almost want it to be a bit more challenging for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just so smooth, so soft. It's just, right, pull the next one.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing with it, it's one of those where you pour it, you take a sip and you almost forget how much it's cost until you look at it, and then you slow down. It's like, oh, I've got to slow down with this one because of the price of it, but you know, it is so easy.
You tend to slow down about here. That's when you kind of go, oh fuck, right, okay.
Yeah.
Hang on.
No, I mean, it's like you say. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit lower than you, like we said, but this bottle's been open for probably 6-7 months, and it's even at that level now, it's still getting better. It's you know, it's not oxidized or anything.
No. I love that the salinity on the finish for me is just wonderful. It's not, and it's got a wonderful length and depth to it, but it's not overly poweringly salty. I know that sounds weird, but it's got that wonderful drying, salty finish to it that I just think is just magnificent.
Is there anybody not liking it? You know, we're all waxing lyrical here. Is there anybody not feeling the love for it?
Don't
I like
as
it.
much as the 18.
You prefer the 18?
I want the 18 with a 25 finish.
Yeah, I can see that, Claire, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's a lovely dram, but I'm not entirely convinced that I would spend 300 quid on it. I'm honest.
No, I think
that's the other one. It's a nearly 400 quid is a lot for one bottle of malt. I mean, when you think about how many, I mean, you could get 8 bottles of 15-year-old for that.
I think this is the conversation me and Craig has had a lot over the years, that, you know, you look at some drams and you think, well, that's 2, 3, 4 times more than this one, which is bloody good in the range anyway. Is it worth that extra money? And I think, you know, it obviously does depend a lot on your budget. If you've got the money to buy this, I think it's one that you should buy. If you haven't got the money, then the 15 or Victoriana are going to be, you know, they're gonna challenge you enough anyway.
You get the 15 and the Victoriana and the 18 and the double cask.
Yeah, and still have some change. Yeah.
I think again it kind of comes back to the way I was kind of talking about it on occasions, and I try and get folk to think, and especially when we're talking to like folk within this group, you kind of you have to think of your collection as a whole. And I think it was Fee said it. It's like a sipper but priced as tastes like a session dram but priced like a sipper. But it's looking at it's how you think about your collection, and like whether it is that everyday dram, that drams you're sharing with pals, the end of the night dram, the special occasion dram. And it's where the spaces exist within those categories. From that's how I personally look at it, and that's then when I'm looking at that purchase decision is how I frame it. With I've got kind of 3 or 4 special occasion drams, so I'll maybe just go for a couple of bottles of 15 kind of idea.
Yeah, for me, this is the kind of dram that I would happily drink. Don't get me wrong. Like Simon said before, you could neck a bottle of this in a night, but I'd cry about it afterwards.
Yeah.
You would? Yeah, of course.
Because it's like, oh, that was a great night. And you're like, that was a £400 night. Jesus Christ. And the problem is, mate. Well, I know, yeah, you know what I mean? Like L'Oreal. It's the problem that you've got is that you've got 5 different whiskies here that are all fantastic in their own way, and they all provide a really, really sort of engaging and enriching experience at very different price points. They're all, you know, we've spoken about the Victoriana, the 15, even back down to the double cast. That's a lovely dram. And it does go back to people's budgets and what they're willing to spend. And I mean, for me, yeah, the 25 is lovely, but again, I would still rather have however many bottles of the 15 over the 25, and you know, 2 over the 18.
That's in a nutshell, though, Andy. It's trying to create that range that does offer the price points for the guys that are willing to go out and spend 400 quid on a bottle of whiskey and drink
absolutely. And there are people that do it week in, week out.
Versus that 32 quid double cask everyday sipper. Do you know what I mean? It's and it's been a very like I said, it's been a very conscious decision to look at the range as a totality, create the different price points, the different flavour profiles. So we've maybe dialed the sherry up more, bringing the bourbon through more in the 15, but always, as I've said, kind of keeping that median line of the Campbelltown style and making sure that's prevalent through everything we do.
See, I think for me, I mean, you know, we do look at how much of a price jump there is to this one, but to me, it's got that elegance. It's got that whiskey that, yes, it's too easy to drink. Yes, you're going to drink far more than you want to in a night of it if you're not careful. But there's just something about it that it just has that feel that it is, you know, even though it's easy to drink, it's still something special.
Yeah, I think it's still great value for money as a 25-year-old. You know, yeah, like you said, we'll drink too quickly, but you're going to enjoy every moment you're drinking it. You know, there's definitely bottles out there that you can pay that money for that will challenge you more and make you take your time with them. But are you going to get the same pleasure out of them as you would drinking this bottle?
And we've got to say, it does come in a nice wooden box.
Oh, it comes in an amazing box.
So it's well worth the extra bit of money for all those that are thinking of buying it. It does have a nice wooden box.
You can make a little ukulele out of it afterwards.
Listen, if your biggest complaint from the 25 is that it's too easy to drink, I will take that every day of every week.
And I'll tell you what, the inside of the box does smell nice as well.
Actually, the box was actually quite a big seller for me, which sounds really stupid, but I think I paid $2.30 when it was on sale, and I've kept it. It's not open yet, and it's ready for a big occasion or a celebration or something. But when I finally get round to opening it, and I open that heavy wooden box and I start pouring it, even the moment up until actually drinking the dram, it's probably going to make it worth it for me. Just the whole, right, this feels like a special dram for a special occasion kind of thing. I think that does make a bit of a difference to me.
I fully agree with you, Simon. Yeah, fully agree.
I think I'm the opposite. So shelf space is my limiting factor. So big boxes are a problem, and I'd rather have like very small packaging. My kids like the boxes because I give them to them, but my wife tells me off and says, "Why are you giving all these boxes to them? We don't need any more crap."
Oh, good. More clutter for the kids' rooms. Excellent.
I dump the boxes normally straight away. Certainly the cardboard boxes and the cartons, they go. Wooden boxes, I've kept a few of them just to put up on the shelf because they look pretty. But I still need to make a ukulele out of one of them.
I mean,
I'd be interested to see the sound you get out of that, Dave.
I've just poured some 24-year-old Campbelltown, the one I was telling you about, Gary.
Indeed, yes, yeah.
And I've got it up against a. We need to talk. We need to talk afterwards. Aye.
No, I mean, for me, the wooden box helps sell it as well. I'm a right tap for something like that. So, and like Simon says, when you're opening a box and you've got that, you know, the weight and the smell from the box, and it does make it more of an occasion for me.
Oh, definitely. And I think it's again, it is part of the presentation for it, and it was a considered choice of giving it a significant step up from a cardboard box to the wood. It's not. I think one of the things you'll find with Glen Scotia is will never be overtly showy and blingy. As much as the 18 comes in a shiny gold carton. That's probably as razzmatazz as we'll get. And you consider that even when we went up to the 46, it was still a fairly, as much as a stunning, wonderful handmade wooden box, still a real nice oak, kind of stained oak wooden box that's slide out, no real bells and whistles to it. It was just something that really imbued the character and the craftsmanship rather than, like I said, a bit of razzle dazzle.
Misses the disco cows. That's what I want to know. Who's got any disco cows in their collection?
I love the disco cows. They were brilliant.
The disco cows are brilliant. Yeah, has anyone got any?
Cyan certainly has some liquid from disco cows.
Has anyone got any of the disco? I had some disco Inchmullen, but not any of the disco cows.
Oh, the old vodka bottle Inchmullen, the nice tall thin.
Yeah, with the can.
That was way back when.
I've got the boutique blended Campbelltown, which has got cows wandering around it, but not the original.
That's a 5-year-old. Yeah. That's a teaspoon, doesn't it? Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll bring the recording to a close in a minute, Gary. Sorry for butting in. But it does seem like everybody's kind of going for the Victoria. Is there anybody who doesn't find the Victoria the favourite? Let's go that way.
15.
Yeah. What are you finding, Andy? You're going the 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. Adrian, 15?
No, I'd go for the 18.
You're going the 18. Yeah.
Yeah,
John,
I'm thinking it's bloody hard, mate. At a push, I mean, yeah, at a push, 18. I think if I was feeling
rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 15's damn good, and Victoriana's great as well. So just buy the lot.
Interesting to hear sort of a few people sort of saying, they like different parts of the different whiskies, and that's, I think, certainly been my experience a little bit. I sort of, some of the whiskies that I like less, I think the reason that I chose the 15 is probably because I like sort of both the palate and the nose.
It's Campbelltown through and through, Ed, and that's kind of your bag, I suppose.
Yeah, really like it.
Yep. Anybody else didn't pick Victoriana? So what are you going for, Jamie?
Is it the Victoriana was my least favourite, I think, and so I think I'd say 25 double cask, 15, 18 Victoriana.
It's interesting. Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, 15 just for value for money, I think, for me. But obviously, yeah, if I'd got all the money in the world, it'd be 25 every day.
Yeah.
I mean, caveat that, I would say if someone wants to buy me a bottle of 25, I'll happily accept a donation.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody will offer you that, Adrian, at some point tonight. Anybody want to offer Adrian a bottle of 25, or would you rather keep it yourself?
Don't all guys.
I'd drink it and put the box somewhere.
Depends what size of bottle is after. Do you know what I mean? I've got like a.
I'm happy to accept offers on the box, and I'm sure we could do a dram swap for Adrian.
Right, well, what I'll do now is I'll bring the recording to an end, and then we'll all chat offline and drink merrily for a few hours. But really, thanks, Gary, for bringing this forward. Obviously,
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah,
you're welcome, guys. Honestly, been delighted to be able to. It's you're genuinely one of the first groups we've been able to do this kind of vertical tasting with. It's a pack that we hope to be able to bring to kind of bring out kind of commercially wise, and try and do these kind of things on an ongoing basis. We've already done our first one with Lomond, and we hope to maybe even try and do them kind of once a quarter, just like an official Glen Scotia tasting. Like I said, it's the virtual tastings are here to stay. So it's been a genuine pleasure to be able to share it with you.
This is brilliant, Gary. I'd pay 70 or 80 quid for that pack easily. So thank you.
No, I find that quite good of you, Gary, offering to do it with us every quarter. I think we'll all be happy to volunteer our services every quarter for this tasting.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, and sending samples for us to help.
Unfortunately, because of GDPR, I had to rip up all your addresses. So sorry about that. That's
We can send them again, mate. Don't worry about
it. Just look in your DMs.
The waft of DMs on the way.
Brilliant. Right, I'll hand it back over to you, Gary, if you just want to give us the last words, and then we'll just go to our usual nonsense.
Yeah, no, listen, just want to say genuinely thank you so much, guys. It has been my pleasure to take you through this. I think it's been like I said, Campbelltown's always got a soft spot in my heart. It's been the whiskies that introduced me to the world of whiskey. And it's been my pleasure to be able to help shape this range that it's gone through, and I'm glad you all enjoyed it. And I think it's been great to hear your thoughts, your notes. It's been wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Slàinte mhath.